My name's Tom Broadwater. I'm Associate Lama at Columbus KTC. And I want to welcome you here in this space. And I want to thank you for the generosity of your time in coming by. Your time's very precious, and I don't want to waste it. So hopefully there will be things that I say today that will be helpful to you. So again, thank you for coming by. Today, I intend to talk about mind training and one of the slogans that is located within that literature. It's a slogan, and there are many slogans within mind training, and I picked one in regards to gratitude. And I think that's pretty timely because 3 days ago, of course, we celebrated Thanksgiving. And that's a National Day of recognizing the virtue of gratitude. And the slogan I chose is a very simple one. It is towards all beings, and I emphasize all, towards all beings, show gratitude. Towards all beings, actually, contemplate their kindness. Another elaboration of that same slogan is towards all beings, non-humans, enemies and friends, and particular perpetrators of harm, contemplate their great kindness. So at this Thanksgiving, and really at all time, for that matter, this slogan urges us to be regarding the kindness of all beings, but particularly those that harm us. It's hard to grasp that. I remember the first time I heard that slogan, I had trouble taking that on. In fact, I've worked with mind training for probably 12 years. I worked with it prior to going into retreat. After retreat, Lama Kathy and I spent 6 months on it together, studying it. We actually met in a coffee shop together, and we went over the slogans. And I have to say, now, I didn't get it. I really didn't get it. I didn't get these slogans until actually I experienced a great deal of difficulty in my own life, both in personal relationships and in just general circumstances of my life. It wasn't until then that I sort of got what these slogans meant. The sentiments that are expressed in these slogans actually sort of sound contrary to our well-being and to actually our sanity. But are they really? And of course, I'm going to say, no, they actually promote our well-being and our sanity. And we'll see that as we go along. So to understand this slogan, we have to go back to the body of the teachings in which they are found, the 7-point mind training itself. And we'll try to put this one slogan into the context of that body of teachings. So let's look at Tibetan practices that are called Lojong. Lo means mind, and John has a couple of meanings. It's spelled L-O, transliterated, it's spelled L-O-J-O-N-G. Lojong. And again, in Tibetan, Lo means mind, and Jon means gaining a skill, familiarizing ourselves with a specific kind of thinking, cultivating mental qualities such as compassion, and purifying anger. And in this case of mind training, all these various meanings apply. So, in other words, the mind is going through mind training, is going to gain a skill. It's going to become familiar with a specific way of thinking. And we're going to cultivate certain attitudes and qualities, particularly compassion. And finally, as a result of our working with our mind, with these slogans and with these practices, we're going to purify our anger. I'm going to put it a bit differently. I'm going to say that mind training actually, the whole point of it is to transform our mind. It's really, as I think about it, it's really about conversion. The Greek and later Christians called it metanoia, changing the mind. It's a conversion. It doesn't so much involve, some sort of confession of sin, but rather a change of heart and mind. It's a change of outlook, a change of attitude. This is the goal of mind training. And in this transformation, we're going to re-envision love and compassion. Love and compassion both for ourselves and for others. We'll do some practice at the end of this talk that will help us to understand more clearly what this all means. So again, the theme of mind training is a transformation of our basic attitude towards ourselves, others, and the events that occur in our lives. What does this transformation involve? Well, if we're clear and observant about our situation, we begin to see how our self-grasping, our self-concerns cause us suffering. And I hope in the course of this little talk, you'll see how that's so. But it's not just clinging to a self, it's clinging to a self and me as if it were intrinsically a real self. And perhaps more importantly, we cherish this me at the expense of others. Mind training challenges us to reverse that process. A part of that training is understanding that all others are at least, if not more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. Our true enemy lies within, not outside us. You and I cannot deny that we are hurt when we're insulted. We're disappointed when we're betrayed. We're outraged when we're mistreated. And we're jealous when others are successful. Can't deny that. Oh, we may try. In fact, we may militantly be ignorant of it, but the fact is, we have all those emotions within us, and we suffer from those afflictive emotions. And the key point here is that our own self-cherishing makes us vulnerable to these very painful states. I don't know about you, but when I feel jealous, I don't feel good. It doesn't feel good. When I'm outraged, I don't like that feeling. They are painful states. So mind training tells us to place all blames on one source. And that one source is our own self-cherishing. Toward all beings, contemplate their kindness. On this path to conversion, we will meet all kinds of situations, all kinds of people. both positive and negative. So the formulators of mind training have provided us with a clear path, a path filled with clear slogans that we can memorize and help us on this path to conversion. And these slogans and this way of life we can integrate into our daily lives and practices, especially Tonglen, which we'll talk about in a moment. And they will assist us in our conversion, both in good times and bad times. As the 7-point mind training states, and I quote here, when all the world and its inhabitants are filled with negativity, transform adverse conditions into the path. A very timely instruction, wouldn't you say? I mean, this world is filled with a lot of negativity. And there are a lot of people that are being very negative right now. So it's a timely instruction. So the instruction again is, when all the world and its inhabitants are filled with negativity, transform adverse conditions into the path of our conversion. So if we're slandered without justification, we can see it as an opportunity to practice patience. If we're attacked by someone, we can view the attacker as possessed by something you might almost call a demon, anger. And he himself suffers from that. If we're imaginative, we can extend this to all situations, success and misfortune on the path, joy and pain on this path, wealth and poverty. We can include them all. The mind training master Shakyastri said, and I quote, "When I am happy, I will dedicate my happiness to all and aspire that all find true happiness." When we're happy, oftentimes we're saying, how do I get more? It's sort of a selfish kind of thing. Or we sort of sit in a self-satisfaction, not concerned about others. And the mind training master says, when I am happy, I will dedicate all my happiness to others and aspire that they find that happiness too. And he says in this regard, may benefit and happiness pervade space. So we're not just taking on this happiness and selfishly saying to ourselves, well, I got this, now I want more. It's saying, I have this, may all have this. And he further says that when I am suffering, I will take on the pains of all beings. May the ocean of suffering run dry. Usually, I don't know about you, but me, when I suffer or have pain, it can be a very claustrophobic feeling. My pain, me, I have to take this medicine, I have to go to this, that, all that sort of thing, sort of by habit, happens to us. But the mind training masters are saying, when misfortune occurs to us, whether it be ill health or whatever, when I am suffering, and I quote here again, when I am suffering, I will take on the pains of all beings. May the ocean of suffering run dry. Instead of simply focusing on my pain, my hurt, I recognize that all beings suffer at one time or another. And since I am suffering, I imagine that I take it all this suffering from others, onto myself. Because why should they have to suffer? I am suffering. And more importantly, perhaps, you start seeing that your suffering is not singular, but it is joined to all suffering. So your relationship to suffering itself changes dramatically. And you end with the aspiration, may the ocean of suffering dry up. So by my working through this moment of difficulty, may all beings, may their suffering end. In our conversion journey, every circumstance is a favorable condition for the altruistic heart. With full assurance that through transforming our mind, we can be happy, actually joyful. When we begin to live this way, we can say with Chikawa, the author of the root text, and I'm quoting here again, because of multiple aspirations, the aspirations that, all suffering dry up, that all beings have happiness. Because of multiple aspirations, I have defied this tragic tale of suffering. And having taken instruction to subdue self-grasping, now, even if I die, I have no remorse. The beauty of mind training is its simplicity. The structure of mind training is uncomplicated. If you understand that its purpose is to subdue our self-grasping, if we understand that, we don't need any complicated reasoning. Nothing like that's required. Now, having put this slogan within the context of all the mind training slogans, we can go back to the original slogan, which was, towards all being, contemplate their kindness. The slogan encourages us to focus on the kindness of others, including those who have harmed us. Now, how could that be? Well, it doesn't mean that we deny evil, nor do we deny that people actually act badly. We don't deny that. In practice, when we reflect on the kindness of others, kindness does not mean kind intentions. The kind intentions of an offender. Rather, it refers to the resultant benefit, regardless of their intentions. If another person's actions result in a reduction in our self-grasping, then they benefited us. It's all about mind. It's all about mind. We and we alone get to determine our experienced reality and what we choose to attend to. It's that simple. It's all about mind. It's easy to meditate on the kindness of those we like. But it's not so easy to meditate on the kindness of those we find difficult. It's much harder because we find it easier to criticize and to blame them. We spend our energy doing that. But in the Buddhist point of view, we carry within us the sources of our own suffering. The person who is arrogant, who is domineering, who's thoughtless, who's manipulative, will suffer from these afflictions. So a person showing bad behavior is an excellent subject for our compassion, for our practice. And we'll be doing some of that a little bit later. Disagreeable people are kind because whether they intend it or not, give us the opportunity to cultivate patience and compassion. Both of those qualities are absolutely necessary in our journey towards conversion to an altruistic point of view. It's sort of that straightforward. So, such thoughts and contemplations allow us to cultivate relative bodhicitta, that aspiration that we wake up for the benefit of all beings. We can and we should be grateful for people who show us obvious and usual kindness. For example, the checkout person at Kroger's who helps us with our groceries with a smile on their face. At the same time, the greatest opportunity for deepening our compassion is the gift the angry person, the hate-filled person gives us to open our own hearts to all beings. Meister Eckhart, who was I think was a Dominican preacher, but he was a mystic in the 13th century, he had this wonderful statement. He said, and I quote, "If the only prayer we ever said in our entire life was thank you, that would suffice." That's a thank you to all beings. The whole point of mind training is that if we can move through life with a grateful heart for everyone, including those that harm us, if we can do that, even with our enemies, our apparent enemies, that suffices. Mind training is about transforming our life, our mind. This requires a change in our perception of what adversity is, so that we view it as an opportunity for practice. As I said before, I really didn't get these slogans, particularly that one about being grateful to even our tormentors. I never got it until I actually was going through some difficulties. And it was sort of, in my case, a question of sink or swim. I could be swallowed up in my anger and my resentment, or I could learn a different way, a new orientation. And I am very grateful to mind training for that. Our bodhisattva vows include disagreeable people. They include the resentful. They include the angry people in our lives. So you want to ask yourself the question, am I making progress in my spiritual life? When things are going well, we think progress is being made. But the real test for you and me is when things are tough, when we encounter the rude, thoughtless, spiteful person. How kindly do we treat them? And that's the real test. Because in this instance, in this encounter, our apparent enemy is actually our greatest ally. There's a story about Melarepa. He's a saint in Tibetan lore. Everyone who studies Tibetan Buddhism and many others know of the story of Melarepa. Basically, when he was young, his uncle took all of Melarepa and his mother's inheritance. And the uncle treated Melarepa very badly. His mother, Melarepa's mother, then instructed him to harm all of his relatives that were in collusion with having taken their estate. In fact, he killed many of his relatives out of a state of resentment. And then he felt great remorse and turned to the Dharma and his teacher, Marpa. Now, you could say on one hand, his greatest teacher was Marpa. But another way, you could say his gratitude can and could go to his uncle, because it was through his uncle's action that eventually wound Melarepa up in his conversion to his practice, to his altruistic practice. The Dalai Lama talks about the kindness of the Chinese communists who came in the late 50s and destroyed, at one count, over 6,000 monasteries. They have subsequently helped to rebuild many of those monasteries, but nonetheless, in the early 50s, destroyed countless monasteries. And yet, here is the Dalai Lama almost scandalously saying the kindness of communists. But look at it this way. If the communists had not destroyed all those monasteries, the Dalai Lama and many of the enlightened Rinpoches and Tibetan masters would never have come to the West. We can be thankful to the communists, be grateful for their kindness. The Dalai Lama and all the great teachers have given us an inheritance that we might not otherwise have had. Taking all circumstances on the path of conversion requires being open to life, to everything that life throws at us. Another great meditation master put it this way, Langri Tampa. He said, and I quote, "All of what we call taking adverse conditions onto the path entails the getting rid of expectations and apprehensions. As long as we have hope and fear, we cannot take on adverse conditions. If I'm fearful, I can't take it on. If I have apprehensions, I can't take it on. If I only have hope, expectations of certain things happening, I can't take it on." And we all know pretty well that life has its ups and downs. And on this path of conversion, we have to have an understanding that that's going to be the case. And so we have to be open to that and be ready to deal with it in a spiritual way. Again, the practice of mind training requires some degree of openness and tolerance. If we're firm in this practice, we become like a tall tree that can't be bent by difficulties or the way the wind blows. I remember from my college day, one of the first books we read in beginning philosophy was a book by Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust concentration camp survivor. He lost his mother, I think his father, I believe also his wife, his brother. I think his sister did survive, actually went to Australia, if I'm remembering correct. But he had all these things that he lost. And yet, having survived all that, he was able to come out of that, become one of the, in my mind, greatest psychiatrists and healers of the mind in this century. Anyway, Viktor Frankl said, everything can be taken from a person. And in his case, everything was. He said, everything can be taken from a person, but one thing. And that one thing is to choose the attitude that one assumes in any given set of circumstances. To choose one's own way. For Viktor Frankl, life had meaning even under the most miserable of circumstances. And he said, we have the freedom, if only in the stance we take vis-a-vis those circumstances. A Buddhist chooses the Bodhisattva way of life, a life dedicated to waking up for the benefit of all beings. That's our purpose in life. It doesn't necessarily entail big plans for ourselves. Our way, more often than not, involves sitting quietly on a meditation cushion, listening to our teachers, and listening to our own hearts to see what is really true. Our task in everyday life is to be mindful, thinking, is what I'm going to do or think helpful or harmful to me and other beings? And if it's harmful, to abandon that, to abandon all that harms. That's the way of the Bodhisattva. Now, because of our habits, we're going to make mistakes. So each day requires us to recommit ourselves to the meaning of our lives. And so, because we make mistakes, we're going to have to be patient and compassionate towards ourselves, specifically when we make mistakes. There is a practice in mind training called Tong Lin. And it's the instructions are found in the Great Path of Awakening. And they are extremely simple. And they go like this: train in taking and sending alternately. Further instructions are to begin the sequence with self. So, using the breath, we take on the suffering of the subject of our meditation. Visualize them in front of us. And we visualize this in the form of smoke. And on the out breath, we in the form of brilliant light, give or send all that is beneficial, that alleviates the suffering of the person we're visualizing. It's a beautiful practice, and it works particularly well if you put your heart and your mind to it. And I'll give some, so we'll do this together, and we'll do it with me giving some instructions along the way. So I would respectfully ask you to get into a meditation posture, a comfortable posture. Maybe take a few deep breaths to relax. Being relaxed is important. Relaxed but alert. So before we do Tonglen, let's just do a little breath awareness, a little meditation where we watch our breath coming in and out to settle our minds a bit. And then we'll go into Tonglen with my instructions. If you want to close your eyes, you're more than welcome to do that. But just relax, fully aware. Now let's do a little Tonglen for ourselves. Visualize some version of yourself in front of you. Recognize this. Too often our lives have been spent consumed by hurt when we've been insulted, disappointment when we have been betrayed, rage when we have been mistreated, jealous and resentful when others have surpassed us. Imagine all that suffering that is within you in that version in front of you. That's you. Further imagine all the future suffering you will endure based upon this same self-clinging. This is you and me. Our anger, our disappointment, our jealousy, our frustration. See this version of yourself that has been too often who you are. At the same time, there is so much in that person to have compassion for. So on the in-breath, breathe in all that pain and suffering and all the future suffering and pain in the form of dark smoke. Allow it to enter your heart. Pause a moment, allow it to dissipate, and then breathe out your love and compassion in the form of brilliant light. Give yourself whatever you need to be healed, healthy, and happy. So let's do this practice for a few moments. and try as best you can to make it heartfelt. Let your mind and your heart be touched by this suffering. Let your mind and your heart go out in love and compassion for all your mistakes, for all your attempts, and for all your failures. Breathe them in without hesitation. After all, it's you. And breathe out love and compassion. Now, imagine in front of you someone that you found unpleasant. You don't have to choose the person that's caused you the most harm. If you want to, you can, but you don't have to. You might try that on sometime later if that's too difficult. It's up to you. But find someone that you find unpleasant. And we'll do the same process. This person that is disagreeable shares something with you. They share your suffering. They suffer just like you. Suffering is our common inheritance. Perhaps if we could understand that better, we could see this unpleasantness that they project as a product of their own suffering. But no matter, we know they're suffering. So take in that suffering in the form of dark smoke. Allow it to rest in your heart center and then allow it to dissipate. And after it dissipates, breathe out brilliant white light, the white light of your compassion and your love for this person who suffers just like you. Let's do this practice for just a moment. Try to make it heartfelt. If you find it difficult to do this, there's an alternative way of doing that, which is to say, if I can't take it on right now, but if I could, I would. So it's an exercise in, if I could take on your suffering, I would. If I could give you love and compassion, I would. So if I could, I would. On the other hand, if you can, then do it. Now, let's include all beings. And as best as we can imagine, all beings in this world and all worlds in the 10 directions are in front of you. Do the best you can at visualizing that. Recognize as a being, they too suffer. And we're going to do the same exercise, taking in their suffering in the form of black smoke and giving off love and compassion, giving to them love and compassion. So now just drop all thought and all visualization and simply rest and relax. Don't try to do anything, just relax for a moment. That's the best meditation. In fact, Gampopa said, mediocre relaxation results in mediocre meditation. Excellent relaxation results in excellent meditation. So just relax for a moment. So now I'd like to end with two poems by Mary Oliver, a favorite poet of mine. They're short poems. The first one goes, someone I loved once gave me a box full of sorrow. It took me some years to understand this, too, was a gift. Another poem she wrote. When it's all over, I want to say all my life I was a bride to amazement, and I was a bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it is all over, I want to say all my life I was a bride to amazement, the amazing fact that all life is precious, a precious opportunity to find meaning. And I was a bridegroom taking the world into my arms. I embraced in gratitude and love whatever circumstances arose. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for your attention. I hope you gained something from our talk today. And have a great week. There will be someone in this spot next week at 11:30. So again, thank you, and wishing you well on this road to conversion. Again, thank you.